out there. We do have one at 8-1. The permission here, 4 dazes, 4 force of wills, and a spell pierce. So actually not a ton where you see in Team or Delver they have stifles along with everything else in there.
Brendan is really gutting for creature decks this weekend. You look at his creature base with 3 copies of True Name Nemesis, 4 Stone Forge Mystics, and 2 main deck copies of Grim Lavamancer. Not a lot in the way of counter spells. 4 Lightning Bolts alongside 4 Swords to Plowshares. A lot of action for creature matchups, but game 1 at least, I think way behind in the combo matchup.
You will see Penn's hand from a Gataxian Probe, the Swords to Plowshares, a Brainstorm, a Ponder, a Delver of Secrets, Wasteland, and 2 copies of Scalding Tarn. So Weinberg immediately knows what he's up against, and it's a hand with no permission, potential to get to permission from Ponder and Brainstorm, but there's none there right now.
And Gataxian Probe, such a huge addition for these Storm decks. Before, they had to play a lot of discard spells, both to clear out for Force of Will and to know when the coast was clear. But now you get to just roll it into a free cantrip.
Underground Sea into a Ponder here for Ben to get his day started. So we'll take a look at the top 3 cards, decide if he wants to keep them there on top or shuffle them away.
Here now, please make it very clear to us so that we do not drop you before we pair the first round.
Ben, a player who's played a lot of Team or Delver and different Delver strategies over the course of his legacy playing career. Made the switch to Storm at Grand Prix, New Jersey. Had a pretty good tournament there. Did make some money. Didn't make the top 8, though, as we all know.
And Storm, I think, was an excellent choice for that tournament.
I agree with you.
Last call for Chris Eric.
Storm has just been a good choice in the Treasure Cruise metagame, but it's no longer a thing.
Chris Art is here. Cool, thank you, Chris. Jonathan Heiser, are you here? Jonathan is here.
We'll see what Brandon can put together here now in his first turn of the game. It's a Scalding Tarn. He'll crack that, go down to 19.
And Big Quo is not here.
And we'll see if it'll be a Ponder or a Delver Secrets. Typically in situations like this, I like getting the Delver out there. I want to get a clock going right away in the Storm deck.
Exactly. Even if he does know what Ben's playing, when there's no certainty of, I can imagine an argument where you want to Ponder and try to find Force of Will, but he needs to get something going first. And he can always cantrip the following turn.
While they're doing so, I want to talk about a couple things for today.
Oh, there's Delver Secrets for Penn.
We're going to have 2 tournaments running in parallel next to each other. The modern event will be right next
Weinberg will take a draw.
Judges from either event might take your call, but they need to know that you need help.
Now here's a Brainstorm.
For any reason, raise your hand.
Brainstorm will resolve. So 3 cards coming in for Ben. 2 cards will be going back, but this is how Storm sets things up. Cantripping on the first couple of turns. They want to have one big one after that.
Yeah, and I think ideally Ben would like to leave 1 Duress or Cabal Therapy style effect in his hand. Not to cast at random, but to wait for the turn where he wants to go off. Brennan has, he's going to have a couple unknown draw steps to Ben. Also, there's the possibility that he's cantripping, and he wants to save that for the turn in question.
Wasteland's going to take care of that Underground Sea. That's a big deal there.
Particularly with Ben missing land drop number 2.
Yeah, that is a big deal. There's a second Delver Secrets and a passing of the turn. Ben will draw. He'll discard. Infernal Tutor, kick it back over to Penn. If these Delvers flip, this game could be over right away, and Brandon actually can ensure that that happens with the Brainstorm in his hand, but a Ponder Reveal will work just fine. Delvers are flipping.
Given that Brandon had nothing else to do with his mana, at least the way things look right now, I would have liked to Brainstorm in the upkeep there because the upside of those Delvers flipping right now is so huge. It's a 3-turn clock, but Brandon gets the best of both worlds where he gets to hold on to his Brainstorm and still flip.
The attack for 6 will put Weinberg down to 11. This is a Ponder. Take a look at the top 3. Force of Will among those cards. Wasteland 2.
I think Force of Will is going to be the hammer lock on this game.
Yeah, I think
with
so
Ben,
too.
Brainstorm lock for at least 1 more turn.
Brandon going to take the Force of Will, pass the turn back over to Weinberg, who will draw a card, discard very quickly ad nauseum, pass the turn back. Penn's going to sacrifice the Flooded Strand, which he can just do on his upkeep. Discarding a card is the last effect of a turn, so won't be able to sacrifice, but can just sacrifice on the upkeep, which he'll do here.
Yeah. Your opponent says, I'm going to discard to hand size. At that point, you have to play whatever instance you want to play, but once they've discarded, that's part of the turn wrapping up, and you can't play anything at that point. Not that it matters that much in this instance, as you mentioned, because Brennan can simply sacrifice the fetch land before he draws.
So Penn will draw. Does have a Force of Will in hand. Blue card to remove as well. Picked up a copy of Daze.
Pretty powerful against an opponent with no lands in play.
Yeah, not so bad. As here comes the 2 Delvers yet again. Weinberg going to go down to 5. He'll take a draw step. And there's a Lotus Petal. And here is a hard cast Daze to take care of the Petal, presumably. And it is. And that is going to do it. Brandon Penn is going to win game number 1 here over Ben Weinberg. Jeskai Delver up a game here over Storm. I don't know if upset's the right term, but game 1 is actually very difficult for Jeskai Delver in this matchup.
I think normally Brandon's way behind game 1, and that's a huge game for him to win because his sideboard is packing a lot of heat for this matchup.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at his sideboard in just a moment, but we'll start with Ben Weinberg's, who will be on the plate here for game number 2. What do we got over there?
3 copies of Surgical Extraction, a Massacre, 2 copies of Pyroclasm, 2 copies of Abrupt Decay, 2 copies of Defense Grid, 2 copies of Chain of Vapor, and Empty the Warrens, and 2 copies of Dark Confidant. I do like the 1 copy of Massacre quite a bit in this matchup. Not only is Brandon playing with a white deck with a bunch of small creatures, typically they have more small creatures in the sideboard, particularly Meddling Mage. And I think it's reasonable to bring in the defense cards as well because most of Brandon's interaction is going to be counterspells.
The other side of things here, for Penn, he has a Sword of Feast and Famine, a Spell Pierce, a Wear and Tear, 2 Pyroblast, a Red Elemental Blast, a Grafdigger's Cage, 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Ethersworn Canonist, and 4 copies of Meddling Mage. Those 6 creatures quite good in this matchup.
We start there. Those are the best cards Brandon's taking to the table here. Ethersworn Canonist and Meddling Mage, both very problematic for Brandon. Also, creatures that can carry a piece of equipment, speeding up the clock. I like a light amount of the anti-graveyard stuff here. I think that 2 Rest in Peace and 1 Grafdigger's Cage is excessive, but I think 1 copy of that kind of effect could be good here. I feel the same way about the Red Elemental Blast. I wouldn't want a bunch of them, but bringing in a few is fine. The 1 Sword of Feast and Famine is probably an upgrade on the equipment slot versus something like Umezawa's Jitte, because it's hacking Ben's hand is very powerful in the matchup.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards here for Brandon on board out too. 2 Grim Lavamancers, Don't Love True Name Nemesis, that's 5. Lightning Bolts and Swords of Plowshares for each of those. So that brings it up to 13. There can be a heavy swap of cards here.
Yeah, the cards that I think are 100% locks to come in here are 4 Meddling Mages, 2 Ethersworn Canonists, the Sword of Feast and Famine, and the Spell Pierce. Once you get past that, the 3 Red Blasts and the 3 anti-graveyard cards I think are above average, and then it comes down to, is there enough room? As you mentioned, if you look at his deck list, there's a lot of anti-creature stuff here that he can afford to cut. So probably some really heavy sideboarding coming from Brandon.
Yeah, Brandon's going to take the opportunity to move a lot of cards in and out here. And while he does that, we will talk about the feature match area here with SCG Live. You can join it today.
Hop in right now and start chatting. But if you're not a subscriber, you're in slow-mo chat, which means only 1 post per 2 minutes. For only $4.99 a month, you can become a subscriber with unlimited posting and custom emoticons and badges.
Of course, with the custom emoticons, myself, Patrick, Matthias, our Jetpack Penguin, and our Slow Play Turtle, among others that are on the way. Twitch.tv/SCG Live. Join the feature match area today. And if you do, you can talk about this match between Brandon Penn and Ben Weinberg. Weinberg, our lone 9-0. Penn looking to play spoiler. He's up a game, and things are going to look pretty good for him after sideboard, I think.
I think if Ben had access to Brandon's deck list right now, he would not feel comfortable about his chances of getting 2 games here because, you know, Brandon, game 1, he's pretty close to conceding against combo decks, in my opinion. But, you know, Ben had a 1-land hand, Wasteland blew him up. Brandon's draw was very, very good. And now games 2 and 3, Brandon has just a real volume of awesome cards to bring in.
Well, Ben will draw his opening 7. And game number 2 will be underway here shortly.
And that's a typical strategy for Jeskai Delver. They often are, you know, with Bolts and Swords of Plowshares, it's hard to have a good combo matchup anyway. And most of them have a lot of action for the combo matchups. 4 Meddling Mages plus some Light Permission is common on the sideboard. Brandon has more than probably any Jeskai Delver deck I've ever seen. This is the most anti-combo sideboard I've seen. So he's taking the matchup seriously, though again, the structure of the deck makes winning game 1 very hard.
Looks like Penn's going to keep his opening hand pretty quickly here, while Weinberg going to go down to 6. So we'll see if Weinberg can find a better opening hand to get his day started.
A card to really look out for here in Ben's sideboard, though, he has his 1 copy of Massacre. And that's such a good answer to Meddling Mage and Ethersworn Canonist, on top of just the other cards that are in Brandon's deck. Delver of Secrets, Stoneforge Mystic, True Name Nemesis, if it's still there, and so on. So There is only the one copy, but if it comes up for Ben, it can do a ton of work here.
Weinberg going to take a look at a 6. And he will keep. Start by sacrificing a Scalding Tarn. He's looking to dig something. He's going to go with the basic island.
Try to get a little protection against Wasteland this game if he can afford it, as we saw what happened last game.
And now here is a Brainstorm. So 3 cards coming. 2 will go back, casting this right away. Seems as though he needs some help and can't afford to let this run into a Spell Piercer or a Daze.
Very common, you know, especially with Ben mulliganing this game, it's really risky for him to run any spell into a counter spell. All these 1-for-1 trades that Brandon can muster are very good for him. So even though it looks a little funky to be brainstorming on the play in his main phase, it's better than it getting hit by Spell Piercer Daze.
There is an island. And Penn will just simply pass the turn back over to Weinberg, who will draw.
So
here's a Ponder.
As a heads up over the course of the day today, we will be using 0 minutes and 10 minutes for tardiness. So
Penn going to give this some thought.
At round start, you will get a game loss.
This is going to resolve. So Ben will take a look at the top 3.
So talk to a judge, talk to the stage if you need to be late to your match.
Consults his hand before making his decision with the Ponder.
We have 147 players in the standard Premier IQ today, which means we'll be having 8 rounds of Swiss with a cut to top 8. Welcome to round 1 of the standard.
And it's going to shuffle away.
The start here from Ben with the main phase Brainstorm and now a Ponder before making a land drop. I think he may be on the hunt for land number 2. Don't know for sure, but this is the kind of start where people are missing a land drop a good percentage of the time.
Man, he is missing one here. Some mana issues to begin the day. Penn going to play a Brainstorm in a turn. So he'll draw 3. And 2 cards will go back here for Brandon.
And a pretty juiced hand here for Brandon. A lot of cantrips, Meddling Mage, Stoneforge Mystic, Delver of Secrets. A lot to play with.
Brainstorm done resolving. Brainstorm the draw step. There is a Tundra. This is a Delver. And we're going to go back Weinberg's way. Weinberg will draw. Delta is the land.
Big draw for Ben.
Yeah. Brainstorm is the play. Penn going to take the opportunity to cast a Spell Pierce here, which I like quite a bit.
I do too. I've been pretty loud over the coverage yesterday about being pretty aggressive with your soft permission against Storm. Too many rituals. They can play over the top of cards like Daze and Spell Pierce pretty easily as the game progresses.
Weinberg consulting his hand. It's going to sacrifice Pollute Delta. We might actually see a Dark Ritual here to pay for Spell Pierce, to pay for Spell Pierce, excuse me.
Tough times all around, I guess.
I guess so.
It's tough all over.
Yep, here's a Dark Ritual in response. He really, really needs this Brainstorm, apparently. So Dark Ritual will allow him to pay 2. Now he's got 1 black floating. Spell Pierce is going to resolve as it was paid for, and now Brainstorm will resolve. So Ben will take a look at 3 cards, put 2 back. He's already played his land for the turn.
Ben might have a hand that's capable of doing some real damage here if he was willing to Dark Ritual in response.
Yep.
Still got a black floating, and the only real way to justify this play is if you have a hand that's capable of going off this turn, or has the potential to, depending on what you Brainstorm into.
Two cards go back. Brainstorm done resolving. Here's a Duress. A Lightning Bolt. Along with a Stoneforge Mystic, a Meddling Mage, a Brainstorm, and a Flooded Strand is the hand here for Penn. Penn leaving Bolton to hedge a little bit against a card like Xantid Swarm.
And this is good news for Ben. He can select Brainstorm out of his hand, leave Brandon on 1 draw step that he's going to know about, and if it's not a counterspell, You know, if Ben's got a ritual dense hand, which all the plays he's made so far suggests, might be able to go off next turn.
Brainstorm will bite the dust.
Now, Brandon can, of course, muck this up with his Meddling Mage, but you have to be quite the sniper.
4 cards in Weinberg's hand as he does pass the turn back over to Penn. Penn will take a look at the top card. It's a Ponder, which he knew was there from the Brainstorm. And now the Delver will flip. So take a draw step. Flooded Strand can be land number 3. And it will be.
And I think Brandon needs to ponder first here, because that will inform what he wants to do with Meddling Mage, or possibly cast Stoneforge Mystic. Probably cast Meddling Mage, but you don't know for sure.
Looks like he's going to lead out with the Mage. We'll get confirmation on what he's naming here momentarily. And he will go with Tendrils of Agony. Here comes Insectile Aberration. That's a passing of the turn. Weinberg will draw.
So Ben knows the coast is clear.
Yeah.
There was a Ponder drawn, it was not cast. He does have to work through the Meddling Mage, but there's no counter spells in Brandon's hand. His only interaction is a Lightning Bolt in the event that Ben goes for an ad nauseum kill.
How do you feel about the Tendrils name on the Meddling Mage there? A lot of the times we see Infernal Tutor the name.
I think Infernal Tutor is typically the most consistent card to name, because most of their hands that go off require it.
Here's a defense grid. You know, depending on Ben's setup, you can spike a win by just naming Tendrils.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's rare.
I can see it going either way. I think that I would probably name Infernal Tutor, but I don't mind the naming of Tendrils.
Arid Mace is land number 4. This is intact for 5. Weinberg is down to 10.
Not a great frame on the 9th edition artifacts.
Not a fan?
Not great.
No. Here's a Ponder, another Meddling Mage. Let's make it 2. And a Stoneforge Mystic.
Well, with the fetch lands in play, Brennan has a pretty straightforward play if he wants it, of just taking a Meddling Mage, probably naming Infernal Tutor, possibly naming Massacre if that's on his radar, and really testing Ben. You know, he's got a Lightning Bolt in hand, so the Meddling Mage plus the Bolt represents lethal next turn. Ben's aware of this as well, so he has to go off through your 2 Meddling Mages. Not an easy thing to do.
Sacrifice the Arid Mesa. Volcanic Island searched up there for Penn. And it looks like a Meddling Mage is on the way. We'll see what this one's going to name here in just a moment. Defense Grid, a card that can definitely play a role in this matchup. Just depends on, you know, the construction of the Delver deck.
Well, it's a real credit to Brandon's sideboard here that Defense Grid only matters so much. When he's on all counter spells, Defense Grid's a backbreaker. The fact that he's bringing Meddling Mage and Aethersworn Candace means that Ben can play Defense Grid and Brandon can still interact in a powerful way. And you're seeing that on display right now.
Yeah.
Defense Grid in play, Brandon has yet to draw a counter spell. And in fact, he's just playing to the board and interacting with Ben that way.
This time it's Lion's Eye Diamond.
Oh. Ben naturally draws Lion's Eye Diamond.
Well, that's how these things work.
Yeah.
Here's a Brainstorm. 3 cards coming, 2 will go back, and we'll see if Ben can put some sort of turn together here because he's going to need to.
And it's tough for him to go off through ad nauseum is part of the problem here. And ad nauseum is probably the easiest way for him to go off insofar as finding it. It makes it very likely he can find a Massacre as part of his plan here, but it just can't get through everything.
And he's going to concede the game. Brandon Penn's going to win this match here over Ben Weinberg. 2 games to 0. Jeskai Delver will take care of Storm. I'm a little surprised by the result. Mostly, you know, I expected it to go 3 games, but, you know, Jeskai Delver is not the best of the Delver variants against the Storm decks, but Brandon made it look very easy this morning.